Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. The suggestion of a northeast highway as a solution to continued road failures on the Bois de Lille is being pushed aside by civil engineer John Peters. Peters, who is a former chief engineer in the Ministry of Infrastructure, says that a new highway is not the most feasible solution at this time. He did, however, make suggestions as to what can be done to stabilize the Bois de Lille.
Recent failures of the Bois de Lille road has brought into sharp focus the need for a new highway to serve that part of the island. Revelations by Infrastructure Minister Stephenson King that plans are already in the pipeline have raised eyebrows for a former chief engineer, John Peters. Peters said that over the past 35 years, there have been failures to that particular road, and the idea of constructing a new one, especially during these economic times, may not be the best course of action. He believes these plans have not been properly thought out.
I've heard about this north-south road, taking the road from Fondo and taking it up to Deborah. And as I've said before, nobody has considered what happens from there. If you're looking at that road as a principal relief road for the East Coast Road, then you have to take it from that point at the top of Deborah and take it down into the Grosley Highway, which is a principal arterial road network to the north and to Castries. And if you travel that road, you will realize that there's some significant challenges if you want to create a road that would receive heavy goods vehicles from the top of Deborah into the Grosley Highway. And I don't think that particular solution is feasible at all. The cost alone, I would estimate, would be hundreds of millions of dollars just to take it from where we are on the East Coast Road up to the top of Deborah.
He said that most of these road failures share similar characteristics.
There's one significant characteristic. If you want to look at all of those slip failures, most of them, if not all of them, were on the cliff side of the roadway. And what is also significant is that if you look at how the water flows were in those areas where the runoff was coming from the road, cascading down the side of these cliff sides, weakening the foundation of some of the retaining walls, and ultimate failure. So I believe one of the first things that the ministry ought to do is to build some resilience to the Bois de Lille section of the East Coast Road by first looking at the drainage systems on that particular cliffside. And when I say look at it in detail, to actually walk the route, clean up those areas where we have grass now covering the entire drainage system, and to physically walk along the entire length of the road and identify those areas where there are clear signs of failure.
The engineer also said that the concept of building a tunnel under the Bois de Lille is also not feasible.
Anyone who understands the cost of tunneling, they would note that that tunnel, I estimated to be probably costing about $6 billion if it is constructed. And that is one cost. And then there's also the attendant cost of the maintenance of it. And when you start looking at the lighting systems required in a tunnel of that length, the ventilation systems, mechanical ventilation systems that are required because you have to extract the carbon dioxide every 30 minutes within the tunnel. The cost of maintenance alone will far exceed what we have now on our budgets for the ministry.
A section of the Bois de Lille road was compromised last Thursday following heavy rains, which resulted in its temporary closure. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
The St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association is weighing in on whether it is now time for St. Lucia to amend its COVID-19 protocols. Barbados and Grenada have announced that this month travel restrictions will be eased for travelers who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Richard Pittikin told Hot 7 TV News that St. Lucia's Health Ministry should consider emulating these regional countries. The president of the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association says not all trends should be followed.
Effective May 1st, authorities in Grenada will ease travel restrictions for travelers who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Visitors to Grenada who have received the final dose of the COVID-19 vaccine at least 14 days prior to travel will be allowed to enter Grenada and quarantine for only 48 hours rather than the previous requirement of 5 days. These travelers must still present a negative COVID-19 test taken within 72 hours prior to travel. Similarly, in Barbados, effective May 8th, travelers will require to quarantine for 1 or 2 days. Questions are being raised as to whether St. Lucia should follow suit and make changes to its COVID-19 protocol as well. The president of the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association, Dr. Merle Clark, says the established protocols are currently working and changes should only be made when there is absolute need for it.
As it pertains to the issues of not wearing masks or changing the public health protocols, which are tried and tested and have been shown to keep us safe, as well as the changes to quarantine protocols that we're seeing in some of our neighboring islands, I think what we need to understand sometimes is that those things are dictated by the economics at times, and we need to be very, very cautious. So with reference to the changing quarantine time, what is important to note is that COVID-19 still has an incubation period of 14 days. That has not changed. The public health agencies, the Pan American Health Organization and WHO, have not recommended changing that with vaccination. Now, obviously, in time, those things will come. Different countries have different rates of vaccination. When you look at the St. Lucian context, we have a little under 25,000 St. Lucians vaccinated. Some of us have received both doses and are fully covered, but the large majority of St. Lucians are not fully vaccinated.
As the vaccination drive continues in St. Lucia, over 24,000 people have received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Dr. Clark says St. Lucia should not be jumping on any bandwagon.
And we're seeing things move so quickly that discussions have to be had. So I certainly don't think it's a question of because Barbados is doing it or because Grenada is doing it that we should do it. There are things that St. Lucia did that those other jurisdictions did not do. We're coming off a third wave, which was a significant wave. We lost over 74 St. Lucian lives, precious St. Lucian lives, and we need to be very cautious in every decision that we make. That saving lives has to be the priority. That has to be paramount. And we saw, again, the CDC recommended that if you're fully vaccinated, you can meet in groups, but the logistic small groups of other people were also vaccinated.
She says at this point, there has not been enough data collected to show what the transmission rate of COVID-19 is when one is vaccinated. Therefore, all precautions still needs to be taken.
The data that we do not have is the risk of transmission. So let's just say, hypothetically, I'm fully vaccinated and I get COVID-19. I'm very likely going to have very mild symptoms, but there is no guarantee. I don't have data on my risk or the odds of me transmitting. So if I were to transmit, hypothetically, COVID-19 to an elderly patient or a patient whose immune system is compromised. In my case, I'm a kidney specialist. So let's just say I were to transmit to a patient who is not vaccinated. We're looking at a patient who has the risk of developing serious illness. And the same goes perhaps for visitors. Let's just say you have a visitor who's fully vaccinated who potentially transmits COVID-19 to somebody who is not fully vaccinated, especially an older individual. Those individuals that we know are at higher risk of severe disease. And even that is changing because in some jurisdictions you are seeing younger individuals becoming very seriously ill.
Dr. Clark says the changes being observed in other countries are not one size fits all, as their rates of vaccination may be a lot higher than St. Lucia's. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
The weekend into Monday was not without its fair share of emergency responses. The St. Lucia Fire Service was summoned to Sarat on Monday morning for assistance rendered to a male who was found unresponsive. Fire Service spokesperson Stacey Joseph gave an account of what transpired.
The responding emergency personnel found on the scene an adult male who was lying on his side on the ground. Due to the obvious signs of death, he was left in the care of police officers.
On Saturday the 1st and Sunday the 2nd of May, emergency personnel were summoned to scenes of shootings at Maynard Hill and Morshe.
Emergency personnel at the Fire Service headquarters received a call on Saturday 1st May at 3:35 a.m. informing of a possible shooting incident at Maynard Hill in Castries. The responding personnel found one 20-plus male individual lying face down on the ground. An assessment revealed that he sustained several penetrating wounds on his body. He was immediately transferred to an awaiting ambulance and transported to the OKEU hospital for further medical treatment. An emergency call came into the Gros Islet Fire Station on Sunday, 2nd May at approximately 11 p.m. for an individual who allegedly sustained a gunshot wound at La Bonne in Monchy. The individual walked to the ambulance stating that he was shot in the hand. Emergency personnel assessed the patient and found that he sustained trauma to his fingers. The wounds were bandaged and the patient was transported to the OKEU hospital in a stable condition.
One woman is nursing injuries while 3 others escaped unharmed in 2 separate motor vehicular accidents.
Emergency personnel at the fire service headquarters responded to a call at Lattock Road, Castries, where an individual was struck by a vehicle. The officers found a female individual lying on her back on the roadside in the presence of bystanders. An assessment revealed that the patient sustained a laceration to her head and several bruises on her body. She was fully immobilized and transferred to an ambulance. Thereafter, she was provided rapid emergency transportation to the OKEU hospital for further care. The information received stated that an SUV flipped over onto a house in Babono. Emergency personnel found the 3 occupants of the vehicle standing near the road. After an assessment of the individuals was done, they were all refused medical assistance and were left on the scene in the presence of the police.
Joseph also explained that emergency personnel responded to calls of a physical assault in Barons Drive, Soufrière on Saturday. She says of the 80 ambulance calls recorded, 5 were physical assaults and there was 1 fire. Immunization officer in the Ministry of Health, Tekla Jabatis, is clarifying the extended wait for the 2nd dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Jabatis continues to call on the population to get vaccinated and reminds those who have begun the process that 1 dose needs to be followed up with a 2nd dose.
The Ministry of Health has informed that individuals who had a 6-week interval between their first and second doses of the COVID-19 vaccine are being asked to wait a bit longer before receiving the 2nd dose. The immunization manager at the Ministry of Health, Tekla Jabatis, explained the rationale behind this.
And this was based on the guidance from the World Health Organization. Initially, when St. Lucia started off the rollout of the vaccine, we had decided on a 6-week interval for receiving the 2nd dose of the vaccine. However, the World Health Organization one of its last release, that was just prior to the change. That release was on the 16th of March. It was noted that a wider 2nd dose interval of 8 to 12 weeks is recommended. And that revision, of course, was done because it had been proven that the wider the window effectiveness would increase. The effectiveness of the vaccine is increased. And as it provides increasing protection from the virus to individuals who have been vaccinated.
Jabatis says everyone who was given an 8-week interval can go ahead and get their 2nd doses. She notes that there continues to be concerns about individuals flouting protocol because they received 1 jab. She says for full efficacy, both doses must be taken.
I'm not in a position to see that to basically guarantee someone that if after receiving a full dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, that if they become exposed and they become sick, that it's going to be less severe. What I can tell you is that 1 dose of vaccine does not guarantee you adequate protection, and as such it is important that we are fully covered with both doses of the vaccine. We know that the vaccine does not prevent you prevent someone from getting COVID-19, but of course if someone is vaccinated and becomes exposed to the virus, it reduces the risk of the person getting severely ill, being hospitalized, or even dying.
The Ministry of Health has embarked on Phase 2 of the vaccination program, and as of May 1st, over 24,000 people have received their first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine, and over 3,000 are now fully vaccinated. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
Stay with us, there's more news coming up after the break.